The elusive administrator is a mysterious character whose inclusion in the story goes as far back as the very first developments of the game. I'd like to think that she's a remnant of a class concept that has long since been lost, the Commander class from the cancelled Team Fortress 2 Brotherhood of Arms. This class would be able to see through the eyes of teammates, cameras that the engineer built, and be able to see the entire map. This class would issue orders to their team to keep them focused on the objective. Sound familiar? The Administrator is the most important character in the whole story of Team Fortress, and has always been sitting in the background, controlling the battles since the very beginning. But throughout the main comics, it's slowly revealed what her plans are, and from the most tragic angle possible. One of her assistants, Miss Pauling. Miss Pauling was one of the Administrator's assistants, and was obsessed with her job. She made the Administrator her life, and dedicated herself to serving her, doing whatever she could do for the old lady. Miss Pauling never had any idea of what the Administrator wanted, but she wanted to stick by her side the whole way, no matter what it was. Miss Pauling's story starts all the way back in the War comic, where she appears as a minor side character, but her full story as Team Fortress's main character begins in the 7 mainline TF2 comics, where the Administrator asks Pauling to assemble the team and hunt down the last caches of Australium before their enemies get to it first. With Greyman unable to get his hands on the Australium stockpile, he hires his own mysterious team to hunt down the Australium the Administrator took and get it back. Miss Pauling manages to assemble most of the team together after shenanigans ensue, and they split up to cover more ground. Scout and Heavy go to Ayers Rock in Australia to hopefully find a cache of Australium, but Heavy already suspects that it's gone. Meanwhile, Miss Pauling goes with the rest to find Sniper and go to the Atlantis-esque sunken country of New Zealand, where Miss Pauling is aware of one last remaining cache of Australium that remains untouched. Heavy and Scout make it safely to Ayers Rock to find that there is no Australium left there, just as Heavy predicted, instead finding Saxon Hale and his ex-girlfriend Maggie, and they team up to track down the men who took it. Miss Pauling and Demoman try to find Sniper to recruit him, but they run into trouble when Sniper incapacitates them and ties them up. When Miss Pauling wakes up, Sniper interrogates her, as he knows something is up about his parents. He suspects they aren't his real parents, and he knows Miss Pauling would know the truth. However, Miss Pauling tells Sniper they were going to New Zealand where his real parents were, and that they came to ask him to come along. While this is happening, Soldier, Zana, and Spy go on a mission to acquire a submarine, but Spy simply asks the sailors for it, and they give it to him. With that, everyone gets in, and they head to New Zealand. Upon exiting the sub in New Zealand, Sniper meets his real dad, Bill Bell, and he tells them all how New Zealand ended up destroyed. Bill Bell many years ago predicted a great disaster that would devastate the surface of the Earth, and lobbied to get the ministers of the country to sink into the ocean. Bill Bell being an influential scientist in his time, they believed him and funded the project, building a massive dome over the whole country that would keep them safely alive underwater. But nothing actually happened, and Bill Bell's credit and reputation was ruined, yet he continued pushing further, stating again to the ministers that another disaster was coming, and this time they needed to get New Zealand into space. As much as the people of New Zealand wanted to stop living in a fragile glass dome under the ocean, they ran out of money after giving Bill Bell the funding for the dome. Bill Bell was prepared, however, and he spent his spare time constructing a rocket that would let one person safely escape to space. He was selfish, though, and constructed it only for himself, not making room for his wife, Lar Na, or his child, Mun-Dee. He and his wife fought over the rocket, and little Mun-Dee crawled into the seat and accidentally started the ship. It blasts into the sky and crashes through the glass dome. Water crashes down and floods the country, drowning mostly everyone. As far as they are concerned, Bill Bell and Lar Na are the only New Zealanders left, besides Sniper. The rocket that baby Sniper was in never reached space and instead landed in a small ranch in Australia, explaining where Sniper came from. It's a special moment for Sniper, as he learns why he was never like the other Aussie kids at school, why he never grew big and buff and wanted to fistfight the other kids. Miss Pauling interrupts, however, asking Sniper's parents if they ever found any yellow rocks, saying that they are worthless but that she just wants to collect them for her employer. Bill Bell, however, claims to know the real value of the special metal, being that he's a scientist. Miss Pauling cuts the act and admits the special properties of the Australium, thinking that Bill Bell must have known about it then. Bill Bell, unsurprisingly though, actually didn't know about the special properties of Australium, and just used it to paint all of his spaceships, most of which were failed prototypes that exploded. Miss Pauling, on the verge of a mental breakdown, quickly downs a full cup of wine to make herself feel better. However, it's not the end of the world. Perhaps she could still salvage the paint off of the remaining rocket. They've done much harder things in the past to get Australium. In the background, Bill Bell asks Sniper how they managed to get here, as he still believes the surface of the Earth was destroyed. Sniper tells him that the surface is in fact not destroyed and that civilization still exists. Larna overhears this and gets pent up. She's had enough, and sneaks off in all the confusion. Suddenly, the Australian rocket lifts off, and Larna is inside it. The rocket blasts through the ceiling of the cave, and water rushes quickly into the sealed lab. Everyone is hurrying to the submarine, but Miss Pauling is in a panic and rushes back into the lab to track the rocket. Spy follows her to try and get her to see reason and let it go, as the rest of the team waits for them to come back. Miss Pauling doesn't listen though, and reasons that the rocket must have landed somewhere on the surface. After all, his other rockets were all failures too. She checks the status of the rocket, but in horror she watches as the tracker blips higher and higher into the atmosphere. Bill Bell's rocket is successful, and the last of the Australium on Earth has been lost in space. She is defeated and is full of guilt, but Spy gets her to come back, and they all get ready to get into the submarine. Bill Bell wasn't waiting for them, however, and he steals the submarine, leaving everyone behind. The big gates close behind the sub as it leaves, but a moment later they open again. Sniper celebrates, thinking his father is coming back for them, but it's actually much worse. A big submarine passes through the door, and a mysterious team of mercenaries emerges from it. It is the team Greyman hired to hunt down the rest of the Australium and stop Team Fortress from doing the same. It's Team Fortress Classic, and Medic is with them too. As an example to the rest of Team Fortress, they immediately kill Sniper and let the moment settle in just before taking everyone as prisoners. After some time passes, everyone is transported to Grey Gravel Co. headquarters, where they are going to be tortured for information. The leader of TF2, the Classic Heavy, is talking to Greyman about the mission. Most of the Australian that they were sent to find was already gone, and they were only able to recover very little. They know the Administrator must still have a huge stockpile though, and the Team Fortress Classic team is working at getting all the information out of the prisoners. Classic Heavy is curious about Greyman's plan of world domination, as he doesn't understand the appeal. The amount of work involved means that by the time you succeed, he would be too old to enjoy it for very long. Greyman lets out that he's actually been doing this for around 150 years now, longer than what Classic Heavy expected, and it gets him thinking. Team Fortress Classic initially joins Greyman for the substantial pay, but as the Classic Heavy learns about the capabilities of Australium, he starts to plot against Grey, saying his boys aren't getting any younger. Just as Greyman doesn't value money, Classic Heavy didn't bother with the money anymore. He was interested instead in having his team live longer and stay younger. In their prime, they were the best of the best, but now they're old and outdated, falling behind. He makes the decision to betray Greyman, bringing him to their team's pyro, Beatrice, to be tortured with the other prisoners. And as he leaves, he rips the life-extending machine out from Grey's back. Once he's gone from the room, Zana manages to break free, killing Beatrice and rescuing Soldier. Before they go, a dying Greyman asks to be taken to Miss Pauling, wishing to give her a warning before he dies. Meanwhile, in a separate room, the rest of the team is waiting for their turn to be tortured, and Miss Pauling is guilt-ridden, asking Spy if she messed up badly. Spy tries to comfort her, but she bursts into tears. She can't face her failures anymore, and soon it will all be over. Spy tells her that he won't let himself be tortured. He has a cyanide molar in his mouth, and he will crack it and spit half of it into her mouth before his heart stops. This helps calm Miss Pauling, knowing she will at least have a quick death. Just as Spy is about to spit the cyanide, Heavy bursts through the door and prepares to rescue everyone, untying Miss Pauling. He lets her know that there is no escape for everyone. Thousands of robots are patrolling and he barely made it on his own. She needs to escape by herself and get to the Administrator, offering to make a distraction to help her escape. Miss Pauling starts to help Spy get free, and lets them know the coordinates where they will all meet up, where the Administrator is. Suddenly, Classic Demoman enters the room, and Heavy turns to see what the interruption is, but then fades into a pile of smoke. Heavy was actually just Classic Spy in disguise, and now they have the location of the Administrator. Not even Spy could see through Classic Spy's disguise. The team was starting to lose their edge, and everything was falling apart. Classic Spy orders Classic Demoman to kill everyone now that they had what they needed. Suddenly, Zana comes through the door and punches Classic Spy, and Soldier finishes him. Classic Demoman takes Miss Pauling hostage and makes Zana put down Soldier's shotgun, but Zana jumps forward very quickly and punches Miss Pauling so hard that knocks Classic Demoman to the ground, and Spy uses the chains on his feet to choke him to death. Miss Pauling had been killed by Zana, but Soldier poked her and her heart started back up. Soldier brings in Greyman to talk to Miss Pauling, and he asks for their help. She reminds him that they all hate him, but he says that they know nothing of hate. He says that whatever despicable things that they think that he would have done if he got the Australian first are absolutely true. But he tells them that the Administrator is smarter and angrier, and that whatever plans that she has is much worse than any harm that he could have ever done. He asks them to stop her.
Miss Pauling is offended by his request. She reminds him of all the things that she did for the old lady. Miss Pauling lied for her, framed people for her, and she had murdered hundreds, if not thousands, of people for her. She has been by the side of the administrator since day one and knows what she is capable of, and what kind of things she can do with the power of the Australian. She says she's no pawn of the administrator, and she will always be right by her side no matter what happens. Unfortunately, Greyman dies halfway through her speech. While that was happening, Sniper is dead in Medic's lab, and Sniper is on holiday at God's secret base, Heaven, where he sees his adoptive parents. He gets the closure he needs from them. Before, they never approved of his life as an assassin, but they accept it now, and they want him to go back. He's got a lot of people left to kill, and he wouldn't be a professional if he quit the job before it is finished. Sniper wakes up, and Medic is ecstatic. Sniper confronts Medic, and he asks him why he joined the enemy. Medic answers honestly. Team Fortress was disbanded, and Team Fortress Classic was looking for a medic. He needed the money for his experiments. It was that simple. Sniper lets go of him, and he prepares to head back out, stating he's not afraid to die anymore, making him the most dangerous man on the island. But Classic Heavy comes in and sees him alive. He berates Medic for reviving him, and goes on a tangent about all the things Medic has done that hindered the team. Classic Heavy gets alerted about the escape the rest managed, along with Sniper, who left while Medic was being scolded. He tells Medic to stay put and leaves to stop the escape attempt. However, Medic has other plans. Classic Heavy broadcasts himself all over the island, talking to the escapees about Greyman's plan to invade Australia. He figured out that Grey had an army of leech robots that were designed to suck the lingering Australian trace out of the bloodstream. It would have been a massacre, but for now, Classic Heavy chooses instead to release the swarm onto the mercenaries. They don't have Australium in their blood, but the robots don't know that, and so they will keep searching and searching, ripping them all apart, limb by limb, until they find some. Very quickly, the swarm of robots entangle the group, and it's a matter of time before they are all dead. Miss Pauling's consciousness fades away, and she wakes up face down in the sand, out in the Badlands where everything started. In front of her is a door, and inside the administrator sits in her chair in front of many screens. She tells Miss Pauling that this is where she goes when she dies, although it's not usually for more than an hour or two. If Miss Pauling is there too, that means she failed her mission. She's dead. Miss Pauling admits her failure to the old lady, and the administrator in turn is disappointed in her. "You just gave up, didn't you? You have no idea how important this is," she says condescendingly. Miss Pauling begs to know what is so important about all of this, what the purpose of all this effort is for. She's never asked before. She's always trusted the administrator, and trusted that there would be a place for her after they succeeded. But now it's time for her to know. The administrator questions Pauling's loyalty, but Pauling pushes again, asking what it is she wants. From the administrator's lips, the word blood rings out to her. It's not enough. The voice slowly fades out, and her consciousness fades back in. "I need more blood," Medic shouts. She was only hearing Medic as he was working to keep the team alive. It turns out, Demoman's body, having lacked alcohol all this time, turned itself into a distillery and started brewing its own booze. The leech robots, after sucking his blood, became weak from the alcohol poisoning, and it's given Medic enough time to save everyone and get them back on their feet. Classic Heavy is watching as the events unfold, cursing them, and some of his team come to ask him about the pay. Classic Engineer is worried that they aren't getting what they are hoping to get out of this, and just wants to get paid. Classic Heavy tries to get him to see the value of the life-extending machine he ripped from Greyman's back, and tells him to make more, but he tells Classic Heavy that it's more advanced than what he can work with. Classic Heavy is on the edge of his breaking point, and tells him to get the sentry busters ready. Back on the battlefield, Scout and Heavy parachute down from Saxon Hale's plane to join the fight. However, they are quickly surrounded by the massive robot army, and are waiting for Hale and Maggie, who are taking their sweet time jumping out of the plane. After Hale and Maggie recount some of their memories together, Jerry informs them that they need to jump now, as the plane is out of fuel. They descend onto the battlefield with crates upon crates of guns. The final battle begins. Soon after the battle starts, the rest of Team Fortress Classic falls apart, as Sniper and Spy work together to kill Classic Sniper, and Pyro ambushes Classic Soldier and Scout, leaving them a pile of ashes. Classic Heavy is not finished, though. Even with most of his team gone, he's not going to admit defeat. He finds the medic out on the battlefield, and tells him he's going to tell Classic Engineer how to get the machine working. Medic is done taking orders, though, and surprises Classic Heavy with a powerful swing from his bone saw, and finishes by pushing it into his stomach. Classic Heavy pushes through it, though, managing to get up, and tackles Medic. He realizes Medic has no more use, So instead, he will kill him and force the administrator to get the machine working for him instead. But Heavy comes to Medic's aid, holding Classic Heavy at gunpoint with Sasha. Classic Heavy backs down, knowing he's lost, but Heavy decides he wants to give him a fair fight and puts Sasha down. Classic Heavy feels the same way, pulling his pistol on Medic and shooting him twice in the chest and killing him, ensuring that they can't team up on him. This, however, sends Heavy into a deep rage, and Heavy gives him a mean beating, then sending him through a wall. Classic Heavy tries to reason with him, though, saying they could work together and live forever with the life-extending machine. This only offends Heavy more. He fights even harder, telling him he doesn't need to live forever. He only needs to live long enough to watch him die. Classic Heavy couldn't withstand Heavy's beating and went down, but as Heavy walked away, Classic Heavy grabbed the life-extending machine and shoved it into the large open wound Medic cut into him earlier, and turned it on. It gave him a new surge of strength, and now he's ready for round 2. Meanwhile, Spy and Sniper are making their way through the facility when they come across Scout and a pile of robots. Scout fought off most of the robots, but the last one wounded him pretty badly, and now he's against the wall dying. Spy tells Sniper to give him a moment, and Spy prepares to tell Scout something. Disguising as Tom Jones, he tells Scout about how after getting his mother pregnant, he was young at the time, and he ran away. In Scout's last moments, he tells him just how proud he is of him, and that Scout is stronger than he will ever know. Scout dies in Spy's arms. The disguise fades. Spy is heartbroken. But no worries, because Scout wakes up in heaven, where God greets him delightfully. He tells Scout how glad he is that he's finally dead, and now that they can play foosball. Scout is amazed about how perfect heaven is. They have not 1, not 2, but 3 foosball tables. God and Scout continue to talk, but God decides it's not time for Scout to die yet, and he wants to send Scout back to Earth. I wish you were my son, God declares to Scout. Scout leaves peacefully and wakes back up, to the surprise of Sniper and Spy, who help him get back to the battlefield.